Is it just me, or every time you turn on the news, there's a new segment on climate change? What's causing it? How can we prevent it? It almost doesn't make sense. I mean, as time goes on, doesn't technology get better? Shouldn't we have more solutions to the problems? Or what about just being able to communicate more effectively? Talking on someone on the other side of the world, becoming more socially aware, just crowdsourcing new ideas. So why does it seem like things are getting worse instead of better? I mean, I know I've become better. I recycle, I drive less, eat more plant-based, regardless of what my waistline says. That's why I'm here today to inform you about overpopulation and its negative effects on our environment. Growing up, I was lucky enough to be raised by my activist mother, exposing me to politics and social issues at a very young age. And as I got older, I even had political science as my major in college. And through both of these experiences, I have come to the conclusion that overpopulation seems to be the stem of many of these issues, especially environmental issues. Today, I'm first going to go over what overpopulation is, how it's affecting us today, and then how it can affect us in the future. Let's get into it. What is overpopulation? Well, it's pretty simple. It's when the population's demands for natural resources outweigh what can be supplied. So, as Dennis Dimmick goes over for the National Geographic, we currently have over 7 billion people in the world. And in order for the world to completely supply our demands, we would need 1.5 of the world's resources, which is obviously never going to happen. So now that we know what overpopulation is, let's get into some of the effects today. So some of the ones that you already know are going to be emissions, increasing emissions affecting our environment, urbanization, people moving to cities, deforestation, the cutting down of forests. Start with emissions. Arthur Weston of the New York Times said, in 1970, there were approximately 3.7 billion people in the world. In 2010, that number shot up to 6.9 billion people, only 40 years later, with an 86% increase. And then when it comes to emissions, or emissions due to fossil fuels, in 1970, we produced 14 billion tons. In 2010, that number shot up to 29 billion tons, 107% increase. So not only is the population number directly affecting the emissions produced, but we're also per capita, per person, producing more emissions into the environment. Now let's get into urbanization. Urbanization is obviously when people move from more rural areas to more urban areas. But why does that affect us? Well, according to Doris Baus of the CUNY Grad Center, cities are responsible for 30 to 40% of produced emissions. They also trap heat due to their tall buildings, creating a more greenhouse effect rather. And then they also don't collect water very well. So it can't be reused for drinking, cooking, or any of those things that we need to live. Deforestation. Baus again goes on to talk about how we're losing 100 acres per minute of forests, 52.5 million acres per year, affecting plant and animal life globally. Knowing, if you've ever seen The Lion King, the circle of life, the plants and animals that are affected are not just going to be affected in that one area, but globally, since it's all connected. So now that we know how we're being affected today, let's get into the future. Both Das and Dimmick have made a bunch of really good points as well. Bao is saying how 84 million people per year are of new people. So if we take the number of people born and subtract the number of people who die every year, we'd have 84 million people per year on average, with only the same number of resources. So the number of resources isn't getting any bigger, but the amount of people are. And And with 800 million people not getting enough food today, and 1/5 of the people in the population without reliable electricity, these numbers are only going to get worse. Over the next 500 years, developing countries will produce 4 times the emissions that they are now, and developed countries will increase their emissions by 30%, only leading to more exacerbating effects to the environment. So, now we know what overpopulation is, the effects that it has today, and then what effects it might have in the future. Um, I'd like to end with a quote from David Attenborough, the famous documentary narrator for Planet Earth, Our Planet, and the Blue Planet. But it is alarming at the rate we're going, and although people say in the long run we are not going to stabilize, as far as I can see, at a rather higher level than the Earth can really accommodate. Thank you.